Welcome back, everybody, to another Cellar Dwellers podcast. Got myself, Andrew, and Christian over here with Star Lord and Adam Warlock behind us. As you might know from the title of the video and the backgrounds, today we're discussing Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which is a long time coming, actually, if you remember the whole James Gunn fiasco from a few years ago.
Yeah, it seems like Guardians 2 was literally forever ago.
It's
They
2017, so about 6 years, right?
yeah, and I
Wow.
say forever ago because it was pretty. I think Guardians 2 was like well before even Infinity War, and
Yeah, a
that's
year.
that's when after that, like Guardians, got well established into the Avengers and greater MCU, universe basically. So you kind of haven't seen the Guardians by themselves in quite some time. So definitely one of the Marvel films when I saw the slate like a year ago of all the MCU films coming out. Definitely one that I was really excited to see.
My personal tagline in the last few months was that this was the last Marvel movie I was genuinely excited for.
Hmm.
There are just too many variables going forward with unreleased films and films in production right now that you can't really have any expectations. But Guardians 3, you know the cast, you know the actors, you know the crew, you know James Gunn. So you kind of have an idea of what to expect. And I figure we're gonna get pretty heavy into spoilers, just based on the fact that Christian and I have not discussed this yet. We saw it a couple days ago, but we haven't had a conversation about it. Besides the fact that I liked it, pretty sure he liked it. Just like the general plot overview, it does take place after the Christmas special that was on Disney Plus, which Christian, I'm not sure if you've watched.
I haven't, but I knew about it and heard it. Like I know the basics, but I knew it was out. I haven't, to be honest, I haven't with the since Loki really, I haven't really watched much of the shows that Marvel has put out there. So
That's fine.
in that aspect, I do have a lot of catching up to do. I joke with Balin a lot, that anything as you saw. Quick aside here, I have to say this.
Oh boy.
Um, so Andrew and I didn't technically see the movie
Oh yeah.
together because there was a little mix up. I
Yeah.
He texted me it was at 7:15, but my brain I saw that and then like a day went by and I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's at 7:37." So I was just set on 7:30.
Mhm.
So come to find out we're driving there, we're like literally gonna not make it on time. Like we're gonna get in like as the opening scene was starting. So we couldn't even buy tickets because it was right after 7:15. We're like not even halfway there. And she's like, "Oh, I can't buy the tickets." I'm like, "Why not? It's 7:30." She's like, "No, it's 7:15 and 8:30." So needless to say, as I said to Andrew earlier, when you're in that movie mindset, like you're in your car to the movies,
Yeah.
like
You gotta
you
go.
can't go home. Like
No, you just gotta go.
even if we didn't see Guardians that night, like I still had to go see something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Luckily I was able to see it. So we technically saw it in the same theater, but not in the exact same theater.
Yeah, I was 7:15, he was 8:30, so it's
So
fine. We saw
kind
it
of
same day.
a funny little thing there had to
Yeah.
throw in.
Uh,
But anyway, back to what I was getting at.
yeah.
Um, what I said to Balin many times, I said to you, I'm committed with the MCU at this point. So anything that they throw out in the movies, I'm gonna drag myself, get my ass up, and go see.
Yeah,
Whether I'm excited for it, want to see it, don't want to see it, I'm just committed.
totally.
Um, their slate recently, of course, hasn't been nearly what it used to be. Definitely has been a roller coaster ride, I'd say, the last couple of years with Marvel, and definitely one coming out, me being the Marvels that I know you and I are probably not at all excited to see. When I saw the trailer before
That was the
this
first time I
movie,
saw it, actually,
me too, and
was
I
the other
was
night.
like, my reaction was like, "Oh yeah, that's coming out." That
Yeah,
was it.
November, I think.
And Balin asked me too. She was like, "Are you gonna go see that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but at least my man Nick Fury's in it, if
Yeah,
anything."
yeah.
That's what I try to do, right? Like I try to like choose my battles with these movies. I try to. You're definitely more the pessimist between us two, And I'm
That's
I'm
true.
not, and that's not to say I'm optimistic at all, but when it comes to, any upcoming Marvel movie, I try to look for the positives more than the negatives. So we'll see how that goes. But it was just a kind of brief reminder that, yeah, this is like the last good Marvel movie you're gonna get. So, take it all in while
Presumably.
you can.
One last thing before we do the plot. I am looking up right here. Secret Invasion comes out in June of this year, which is before the Marvels. That's interesting. I never
Yeah,
really
no
thought about
trail,
that.
no I haven't. I knew about that. I thought it was coming out later, but I haven't seen anything about that movie. So
I haven't watched the trailer yet either. I think it's a TV show anyway, a Disney Plus
yeah.
show. So you'll have to do some
Oh, that's
serious
right. That's
catching up.
right.
So yeah, back to the plot of Guardians 3. I figured this was going to be the case when I watched the holiday special, one of the few Christmas pieces of media that I actually consumed in December, that there was going to be a few specific plot points that would carry over into Guardians 3. Um, both of them being, well, one of them being that the Guardians have taken over Nowhere as their headquarters, and that Star Lord and Mantis are siblings. And those do carry over as plot points into Guardians 3, but they they talk about that almost right out of the gate, right as the movie starts, more or less.
That
And
second one makes more sense now.
yeah, yeah,
Because they reference here a couple of times, like, "That's my sister, she's my sister," and I think she might say he's my brother, and
yeah,
in my head, I'm just thinking, well, they all think each other as family, so I didn't really think much of it, but specifically, that does make sense now,
yeah. But legitimately, Ego is her father, and Ego is
right?
his father, which I always thought was confirmed earlier. And our friend Kyle told me the other day it wasn't. It was still just a theory until the Christmas special. But either way, that comes into play. And the third point that that they mentioned, which I thought was incredibly funny, one of my favorite parts of the movie is in the end credit scene, the second end credit scene, when Star Lord goes back to his grandfather's house. His grandfather is reading a newspaper, and on the front, the headline story says "Alien Abduction: Kevin Bacon Tells All," because the whole plot of the Christmas special was that Kevin Bacon gets kidnapped by Drax and Mantis and taken to nowhere. And it was a really, really funny
So
note.
that's what the Kevin Bacon picture was in the credits. I was like, when the heck?
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
trying to think. I'm like, did I
mhm,
forget? Was Kevin Bacon in one of these movies?
the
And I know
Christmas special.
there's like a couple references to him by Star Lord in these past movies in one of the Avengers. So I thought I missed something, but I definitely got to check that out.
Yeah, it's only like an hour. It's a quick watch, quick and easy. The movie starts guns blazing with
Yes.
the excuse for Adam Warlock busting into nowhere and absolutely demolishing the Guardians. Well, I mean, mostly it's because they don't really know he's coming, I guess.
So
Uh,
let's start there because there's a
yeah.
lot more to dig into.
Oh, yeah.
Reasoning why I have the Adam Warlock as my background here. Um, what were your general thoughts of Adam Warlock in this movie?
This might be a little harsh, but this is like the one thing I really did not like about this movie. I have it written down in my notes and I'll read it word for word. Infinity Gauntlet wielding badass was deemed a childish, anger issue ridden clown for the sake of comedic relief. What do you think about
The first part, I mean, I agree with both parts of that statement, but the first part is something I focus more on because again, the drive-in, we knew Adam Warlock was going to be in this movie, or some type of Adam Warlock, let's say,
Well,
right?
yeah, he was the end credits
Um,
of two, one of them.
yeah, I think it was like a mistake to introduce that back then and not have him come into play at some point in the Avengers movie. I know they were gearing up to have him in Guardians 3, and I think presumably during Guardians 2 State of Marvel, they were assuming Guardians 3 was going to be coming out a lot sooner than it did.
Yep,
So
that's definitely true. I think.
I think they had a whole nother plot and story lined up, centering around Adam Warlock versus the Guardians. And that's what they were building towards, which I wish we got, but we didn't. So it's almost like if we never got it, I really wouldn't care that much, right?
Hmm.
Because as you've said to me many times, I've read through some of the Infinity War and Infinity Gauntlet comics, but Adam Warlock is like a crucial figure in the comic book series with the Infinity Gauntlet in Infinity War.
Yeah.
Like he's a
Yeah, yeah,
crucial
totally.
part of bringing down Thanos. So
Totally.
to have a major character like that, as you summed it up really well, be a childish, annoying, like kind of OP type of hero, but then dies down and has a like comes into the movie like you said, guns blazing, and then kind of just takes a back seat the rest of the movie. It definitely was kind of a I don't want to say a distractor, but it was kind of nonsensical. Like there was no really point. Like he didn't add anything to the movie or to the plot really.
Yeah, and the script tries to fix that, I guess, revealing that the Sovereign, the golden people from the second one, are just a race of people created by the High Evolutionary, similar to, so many other characters we see in this movie. And
Yep.
Aisha, the queen of the Sovereign, says at one point to the High Evolutionary, well, he's childish like that because you took him out of his cocoon too early. I get it, but it feels like there's a disconnect because the High Evolutionary, and we'll talk about this in a minute, was such a good villain, and he was portrayed to perfection. Like, it was so convincing and so commanding.
Yep.
And Adam Warlock, hero or villain, could have that same presence, but only if he's the main focus. And to me, it didn't really even feel like he was a secondary character, Adam Warlock. It really just felt like he was the plot device that got thrown in whenever they needed something to go wrong.
Right.
So at the beginning, they needed the inciting incident, so they threw him in. He gets to counter Earth, and I think he goes to the High Evolutionary's place. I don't remember, but things start getting blown up because of him. Most notably at the end when they're flying to the High Evolutionary ship, he's the one that comes in and busts up Star-Lord's spaceship to make it more difficult for him to actually get there, for him and Gamora to get there. So
Right.
it just felt like he was kind of it's like, okay, we need like this challenge for the Guardians is difficult, but we need it to be more difficult. Let's just shove Adam Warlock in there.
Right.
And it didn't feel like it made sense to me at all to have him in there. At this point, I would have rather them just like not put him in there at all and have him show up somewhere else down the line.
All right. That's what I'm saying. It's a huge figure in really all of Marvel comics. Um, Not a guy that I think like the average superhero fan would know, but definitely people like us or anyone really that's just followed the MCU and has just some basic knowledge of the comics definitely knows Adam Warlock. And like I said, it's kind of a current trend and even was, I guess, in the peak phase of Marvel. Like these movies would have end credits setting something up for the next movie with the anticipation that that next movie or that direct sequel would be coming out sooner, but then real life stuff happens and movies get delayed and scripts get changed and characters get added and taken away, and then
Yeah.
they kind of finagle it in a way to make you forget but sort of throw things in there like, oh, see, there's this connection to the end credit scene in the past movie. I can't right now like give you an example, but if you just look them up, I mean, there's countless of them. But that one was so big, and I think the main point of that was they were making him to be the main villain of Guardians 3 at an earlier date, and it just obviously because of some stuff that happened with James Gunn and him getting basically fired and taken off, for Marvel for a short time there. I think that kind of just threw that whole original script, original plan, out the door.
I read an article that said he accepted the job for the Suicide Squad the day before Kevin Feige called him back and said, "Hey, you're back on." So like the
Jeez.
Suicide Squad really just messed up the whole thing.
I guess so. Yeah, a lot of things definitely messed that up. Um, but yeah, I agree. I just think with Adam Warlock, it's just the classic thing of like too little, too late. I feel like most people like, especially the newer, I guess, kids or newer people to the MCU, like they probably have no idea he was even introduced in the last Guardians film. And they just are like, "Oh, this is like kind of a cool character. He can fly and he's kind of strong." And then towards the end, you see he becomes a Guardian. So it's like
Which
just another team member, basically.
in that sense, I can kind of see what they're going for, and if they're making him the comedic relief, considering that Drax is presumably no longer a part of future installments. So you need that comedic type on the team. I just don't know if I like the fact that they're doing it at the expense of Adam Warlock. But I mean, Will Poulter was the he's the perfect actor to be that sort of character that they want Adam Warlock to be.
Totally.
He can be serious at times, but he can also be sort of funny.
Yeah.
Like when you watch Midsummer, you'll understand. You'll see what I'm talking about. Will Poulter's in that one as well. I don't know.
It definitely seems like a letdown for
Yeah,
sure.
but then again, you look at the other side of the villain coin, and you have the High Evolutionary. So, like, how mad can
Right.
you really be about the villains in this movie?
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like anytime Adam Warlock's on the screen, and then once you meet, the High Evolutionary, you realize he's the main antagonist of the film. You're like, okay, I don't really care about Adam Warlock. Can we go back to this, please? And the whole thing around him and Rocket and stuff. So
Yeah,
it's sort of like I said, Will Poulter did a fine job, playing the type of Adam Warlock and the type of character he was, given. But like I said, it's just I think silly me for having higher expectations that it would be a bigger payoff and make more sense and you know
I mean, what are you gonna
but
do, right?
yeah, that I agree. That was one of the only major things I was disappointed about the film. I a lot of the other stuff I really enjoyed, which I know we'll get into here.
Yeah, moving forward, Adam Warlock leaves nowhere after fighting with the Guardians for a little while, and it's shown that Rocket has sustained a life-threatening injury. They can't use the med packs because his heart has some sort of like fail-safe technology device. Plot exposition, plot exposition, plot exposition. Find out that Rocket was an experiment of the High Evolutionary. There's a fail-safe device on his heart, so they have to go. The Guardians have to go get the code to disable the fail-safe, and thus sets off the entire movie. The entire movie is built around the fact that the Guardians have to save the life of Rocket Raccoon, and I think that was a really good way of building the foundation because obviously it's a character that we've known in these movies for almost 10 years. It's a character that everyone has come to love. He's a fan favorite, so I think that that's kind of like a double edged sword in this movie, being that yes, you are 100% invested in the Guardians' mission to save Rocket. But at the same time, there were a few points in this movie where I'm thinking, like, damn, I really wish Rocket were in this. I really wonder
Right,
what Rocket would have to say about this, or I really wonder what Rocket would do in this situation. And, due to the nature of this film, due to the nature of the plot, it's just something that can't happen. So I'm not going to say that's like a negative, but that's certainly something to keep in mind is that Rocket's really only in the final third of the movie.
right. I mean, there's bits and pieces throughout, like of kind of
Oh,
his
yeah, the
upbringing when
flashbacks.
they're experiment. Yeah, the
Yeah.
flashback scenes when he has his other friends like the otter bunny and the sea lion that are all getting
Thieves.
experimented on too. Yeah, thieves.
Thieves.
And so there's ins and outs of Rocket kind of growing up and kind of seeing how instrumental and intelligent he really was, kind of like a classic Frankenstein tale, like the experimentee outclasses the master, the experimenter. Like
It's a good
that
connection.
was kind of
I didn't think of that.
that was kind of the vibe I got,
Yeah, totally.
from that. That was something I kind of was in the back of my head throughout the movie. Like Rocket, you don't realize it till you realize it, like how much I don't want to say like for lack of a better term, but Rocket's sort of the glue of the Guardians, right? Like
Oh, yeah. No,
he has so many
always has been, always has been.
he has so many, like, hilarious, like, lines and moments
Mhm.
that, like, you know, kind of break up some serious tones in parts of, past films, but also he has a lot of serious, like, upsetting, sad, you know, and then he has some awesome badass moments too throughout. So
Yeah,
he has a lot of range as a character. And something that I've always thought of with Rocket that, like, I keep forgetting, it just I don't know why, but it just mesmerizes me that, like, Bradley Cooper voices him. I don't know why,
yeah.
it just
That's
doesn't
always
sound
something I
any
forget.
it doesn't sound anything like Bradley. It doesn't even sound like like Bradley Cooper doing an imitation of Rocket Raccoon, if that makes sense. It sounds
Yeah,
nothing like at all.
yeah, it's
Like,
such a unique
it's
voice.
and that's credit to him.
Oh, totally, totally.
But no, it is like you said, it's not a negative, but it's like, damn, like, he's such a crucial part to these movies. And you knew it, but, like, you don't realize it till this movie where you're like, yeah, like, you really only see the current Rocket Raccoon the last third of the film.
Yeah.
So it's kind of disappointing in that sense, but I totally agree. I had no idea what the plot was gonna be based around, centered around, and it made kind of perfect sense and was really fitting to get, like, I guess Raccoon's, like, origin story finally. Again, because it's like the
Yeah.
movie sort of centers around him and ties up a lot of loose ends that, again, nobody, I guess, was asking for, but, you know, tying in him and the higher evolutionary,
Oh, I was totally asking for it.
it really worked well, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because I mean, even if they don't show it specifically, Rocket is really the only one that we don't have a backstory on. I mean, I guess Groot kind of, but I feel like Groot was crucial enough in the last movies with his adult form and then baby Groot and teenage Groot. So you saw a lot of development from him, and Rocket's development since Guardians 1 kind of uh kind of like flatlined, and not in a bad way. It's
Sort of
just that
stagnant, yeah.
yeah, it's just we didn't really have anything to compare it on or to compare it to. So to see his backstory now, and it was done in such a incredible way, really made you feel for Rocket even more. And it's crazy to think that you can like Rocket even more than you do. Because I mean, like I said, we've known him for almost 10 years in these movies, and to think that your appreciation for the character can only increase with the third installment of the trilogy. But this is his what, like, sixth or seventh appearance in movies,
Right,
in Marvel
at
movies.
least.
That's crazy. I mean, that's just a testament to a good script writing in the Guardians franchise.
No,
Um,
totally.
and he was definitely the heart of the movie, Rocket.
Right,
But I think there's a lot of merit that goes towards the script when it comes to Star Lord dealing with his issues of like losing family members, and he says something like everybody around me always dies. You have his
right.
mother, Yondu, Gamora, Ego. Well, I guess he kind of killed Ego, but same point. So when he's
Still count him, yeah.
when he's on the cusp of losing his friend Rocket, that's when everything really comes to the surface. And
Right.
obviously they do that again with him going to Earth in the end credit scene. What happens next? Oh yeah, they go to that like orifice looking thing that's floating in space. I forget what it's called.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but we do get to see Nathan Fillion in a Guardians movie for the second time, and Jennifer Holland, who's of course is James Gunn's wife, as the like control desk operator lady. That scene was just really fun. I think it was
Mhm.
visually, it was gorgeous. Like the colors and the set design and the costumes were incredible. I think that was just like a really good uh like middle of the movie scene, I guess.
Yeah. No, that that part was just all, like, I got, like, Kubrick, like, 2001: A Space Odyssey
Yeah.
vibes,
Mhm.
even not necessarily, like, Star Wars, but just, like, they really hit home on a lot of, like, older films and older space exploration type
Yeah,
of film
totally.
genre, and it's definitely, like, a James Gunn movie, like, you can totally tell,
Yeah.
and it's just, like, really. all of the Guardians movies, like, the one thing they have like, all the plots are just really, like, solid,
Mhm.
and James Gunn knows how to walk the fine line between, like, serious good script writing and just hilarious comedic moments,
Yeah,
and not go too
totally.
crazy or too far in one direction at all. I mean, I don't know about you, but, like, I was a few times, like, and you were probably laughing at the same scene since we didn't see it at the same time, but there were a handful of times where I was, like, the only one, like, pissing myself laughing because it was, like,
Yeah.
Drax, like, subliminal jokes, just so much, like, deep references that I don't even, like, think were meant to be those, like, joke pause moments, like, they were just, like, quick, like, one-liners that, like, you gotta kinda be paying attention to hear, you
Yeah,
know what I mean?
he's just so good at writing comedic conversations and comedic dialogue into the script so seamlessly that sometimes you don't even realize that the script is trying to be funny.
Exactly.
And I mean,
Yep,
credit to James Gunn and everyone else that worked on casting in all of his movies, really. Like, his actors, somehow have, like, a mental connection with him of, like,
yep,
portraying exactly what the script needs. Like, he's like a zombie Tarantino Nolan type, that uses the same
right,
actors. He's already said that at least one actor from the Guardians franchise or trilogy will have a role in I think Superman Legacy that he's writing and directing. You see in this movie some characters from the Suicide Squad carry over. Uh,
yep,
Nathan Fillion was in his first movie, Slither. Obviously, Michael Rooker, who played Yondu, is in Slither. He's in the Belko Experiment, which is a James Gunn production, but not directing, and it just goes on
yep.
of crossovers and everything. So yeah, James Gunn, the script writing, not just limited to Guardians, but for everything, is just incredible. He is like, years from now, I think there will be, in like comedic film writing classes, there will be sections on James Gunn. Totally.
I mean, let's hope so. And, like, I know maybe some people see it as, like, redundant, but I think one of my favorite characters in all these movies, and especially in this one, was definitely Dave Bautista playing Drax.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, I know that's his character's purpose, but just like, for example, when keeps referring to the kids as morons, but he's saying it so serious, like, it's just, like, it's
It's so
so
cut and
funny.
dry.
Yeah, it's so cut and dry, like, it is, and again, like, just Dave Bautista is, like, again, the perfect, like, cast, like, all I mean, everyone here, like, again, something we always say, not to get repetitive, but Marvel in general, but I think especially James Gunn and the Guardians, like, every one of the characters and the actors portraying them, like, absolute home runs,
Yeah,
like, you can't
exactly.
you can't picture anyone else portraying any of them.
No.
And Dave Bautista was just hilarious in this film,
Yeah.
and
I know we mentioned it in our Knock at the Cabin episode, but like, as much as I love John Cena, like, I think Dave Batista is 100% the best wrestler turned actor. Seriously.
most entertaining, yeah, and with a knock at the cabin, I mean that role he played was incredible. So it's like
Yeah.
he's got an insane range too that I never knew. Like I thought he was kind of just like a way funnier Rock almost, like a big kind of buff jack dude, WWE star turn, actor that's,
Mhm.
a big draw to the movies and stuff. But I can't wait to see him, get future roles in other films,
Yeah,
serious roles, because
he's
I
totally
think
got
he's
the
really
acting
talented.
chops. He's
No, he
totally
he
got 'em.
definitely does. And then even too, like I don't know in the other movie, maybe there was, but like it was just very unexpected and like really funny. The scene when Pratt's trying to drive the car, and it's like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
funny because like he's never driven a car before. Like he's knows how to fly spaceships,
Yeah.
throughout the galaxy. But he's like, and then what's her face? She's trying to open the door, and he's
Nebula,
like, "How
yeah.
do you?" Like, what should I do now? He's like, "Open the fucking door."
Yeah. First uncensored F-bomb in Marvel.
Yeah, it just I don't know, that was just unexpected, but that whole scene was just hilarious, like but yeah, I think this movie, like I said, was just the type of Marvel movie that I think everyone wants and expects now from Marvel, right? Like so many, like just a strong, well-written script, excellent plot, and knowing the fine line of when and where to add your comedic parts,
Yeah,
right?
totally. That's a good
And
point.
I think out of every director, writer, and all this MCU slate films, like James Gunn, I think has mastered that ability for
Mhm.
sure.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it also
And
helped that his second movie was a superhero movie called Super with,
yes,
Rainn Wilson and Rob Zombie voicing God. That's a great
still
movie.
gotta I still gotta watch that. I think
Highly
that's on my
recommend it.
I think that might be on your list here now that yep, right there,
Yep,
Super
Super.
2010.
Yeah, that movie's so good. Moving on, looking at my notes here, I think we've covered just about everything with the exception of the third act. The third act is like, let's say the third act is everything from when Rocket wakes up until the end of the movie,
Onward. Yep,
right? That third act is so damn good.
yep.
Like everything they do in it, and the Guardians as a team is such a great dysfunctional family. Like when Star Lord and Groot get back on the ship and they call Nebula on the comms and they're like, "All right, guys, we're ready to go. Take off." Like, what are you talking about? We're on the ship trying to get you. What ship are you on? Evolutionary ship. Well, we're not on it. We escaped. How'd you escape? You know what I mean? And it just goes back
Right,
and forth.
yeah.
It's a bit refreshing from something like a Captain America movie, let's say, where Steve Rogers is like, "I have a plan. Here's the plan. We got to follow it." And like that has its merits on its own. But when
Right,
Star Lord is like, figure it out.
right.
Wow, that's so good. The scene where they're walking down the hallway to No Sleep Till Brooklyn
Yep.
and fighting all
That
those
whole act.
guards,
Yeah.
dude. I think that on this might be recency bias talking, but I really think that that'll go down in my like top 5 MCU fight scenes. And I'm pretty
Oh
sure
yeah.
it was one continuous shot.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure. And like
Yeah, it
that's
was.
damn
It
cool.
was. It definitely was. There were no cuts or edits there. Yeah,
That was an
that stood
incredible
out.
scene.
That stood out for sure. It definitely the third and final act definitely ended on a very high note, and
Mhm.
as they say, ended strongly for sure. And not that the first two acts were bad at all. It's just kind of different type of pacing, leading up to the final act. But yeah, that whole one shot of them just wiping the floor with them, it was just that's like the stuff that again, like I keep harping on that, like I miss and I want to see in MCU films because it's like they clearly still have the capability, albeit they have a director and this is sort of the current longest tenured MCU trilogy, up to date.
Yep.
So it's not like you can just throw in like a new movie and expect, the same level of satisfaction, the same type of quality that you get here. But you still have the capability. Like a lot of these writers are writing for other, Marvel movies as well. So I don't think it's wrong to like have high expectations for any new upcoming Marvel movie. Like I'm sorry, I just don't think that's a stretch saying that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Guardians benefits we sound like broken records. It Guardians benefits from the fact they have James Gunn and that he's so committed um, to this project, and the actors as well, but in this specific situation, I'm citing, directorial artistic vision, directorial vision, writer's vision, all that kind of stuff, that I think James Gunn, it sort of feels like he's, like, stepped outside of the franchise machine, let's put it.
Hmm.
He's got a finger on the pulse of it, don't get me wrong. He knows what he's doing, but it
Totally.
I don't know, it just feels like Marvel's more inclined to just let him do his own thing because they have the utmost faith in his artistic abilities.
Yep. That's
And
probably the case. That's probably the truth in the case, and that's probably it. is that
Yeah.
he's had a great track record, and they just give him the creative freedom that they don't give really any of these newer projects, definitely makes sense. My larger point is, like I said, it's like you're all these movies, like you have the same producers, you have a lot of the same writers, you have a lot of the same film editors and
Yeah.
the sound mixers and everything. It's like just to generate good scripts and strong plots, I don't think is too much to ask,
No, no, no,
right?
not at all. I mean, they have
And
the
it,
source material. It's just
right,
a matter of
it's
following it.
it's just again, you need a strong director to ride the ship home, and I just that's the that's the only, I guess, kind of scary thing to think about is that there's not a lot of other James Gunns in the sense that have made films that are leading up to sequels or trilogies or what have you. There's not currently in the MCU. So um, my hope with this movie is that anyone that is in that phase or is going to start a newer movie kind of take all the all the good things that James Gunn did with the Guardians, and kind of stay true to who they are and stay true to what they make as a film, and take all the good ideas and the bad and try to put something together that you can put your stamp of approval on.
Want a break from the ads? Subscribe to Cellar Dwellers Productions on YouTube. The ads won't go away, but you'll see more great content like this. One of the major highlights of this movie was the High Evolutionary, played by, pardon my pronunciation, Chukwudi Iwuji.
Sounds good to me.
He was in he was also in Peacemaker, which is a James Gunn production as well. I forget his character's name, but he was like the leader of the covert team, and he was awesome in that as well. But as the High Evolutionary, every scene that he's in, no matter what part of the timeline it's on, he just commands that scene. He grabs it by the throat, and the whole scene revolves around him, which is exactly what a villain should do. I mean, it's what Thanos felt like at least 90% of the time, but I haven't seen those movies in a while, so I can't say for sure. But he is so menacing. Like I feel like, and I've seen fan casts like, oh well, if Jonathan Majors can't play Kang anymore, let's put this guy in as the new Kang, and it's like, yeah, I feel like the High Evolutionary in this movie is probably what Kang the Conqueror should have been in Ant-Man and the Wasp. I mean, Jonathan Majors was great as Kang, don't get me wrong, but the High Evolutionary was on another level, man.
Oh my god, yeah. Just like an unexpectedly, like, just menacing, dominant, like, presence throughout the entire movie, and, like,
Mhm.
I think and again, this is just my basic perspective of how I perceive, like, strong villains, but, like, anytime you can get me to be like, "Wow, this guy is, like, a major asshole," like, they just do something, like, so effed up, so wrong, like, literally
Yeah.
torturing and bioengineering and just messing up the genealogy of all these animals, experimenting on them and creating different races, and trying to you know nitpick and find with a fine tooth comb, I mean, like, go through different races and species and stuff to create, like, basically master races, pretty much, like, is what his goal is, and to
Yeah. Exactly.
control the universe. It's like that's just a completely, like, menacing, messed up thought. And again, like I said, the main thing is, like, not that, like, you get, like, strong hatred for the villain, but just like I said, when you're like, wow, like, this person will go to, like, the ends of time to get his means to meet the ends, basically,
Yep.
and do whatever it takes. But just like I said, just this menacing, just asshole, like, presence, really. Um, Weirdly, like, randomly kind of reminded me of, I know this is, like, gonna be an odd comparison, but hear me out, like, kinda reminded me of Kylo Ren in the sense of just like his, like, manic outbursts. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you
Yeah,
see
yeah, I
what I
get
mean
it.
there?
Now that you say it, I can
And,
see
like
it.
I know a lot of people at the time kind of laughed at Kylo Ren, but, like, he was still kind of like, parts in the good parts of the new trilogy of Star Wars, not meaning to cross franchises here, but like
Yeah.
there's 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 really good parts of like Kylo Ren, right? Like being the
Yeah.
villain. It's just they had no idea what they wanted to do with him. So like that's why that character kind of flopped in the end.
Yeah.
But there's a
Faded
lot of
away.
parts where it's like you're like, wow, this guy's a brutal asshole. It's like
Yeah.
same thing here with the High Evolutionary, like just a brutal asshole that has like seemingly like really not that he's like unbeatable, but just like a dominating force. Basically, you're like dying to see how he's gonna bite the dust,
Yeah.
and you're waiting for that to happen.
Yeah. I really liked this one line towards the end of the movie he had. Um, I forget what the lead-in was. One of his people said something, and he whips around and screams, "There is no God. That's why I stepped in,"
I knew
or
you were
something
gonna
like
love
that.
that part.
But like that is just that's
Yeah,
such that is the
that's
encapsulation of his character in this movie.
mm-hmm.
He's so like in the Rocket flashbacks, which I think were very well done and very well spaced out. He's so endearing at times, like when he's teaching Rocket,
Right.
"Oh, well, this is music. It's very nice. We like it," which I thought was a nice touch too, because you know, Rocket is he learns
He
to like music, and then he found the Zune, and you
and
know,
like another good trait too. I don't mean to jump in, but like another great trait good villains have is they're expert manipulators,
yes,
right?
yes, definitely
And
true.
he totally like picture framed that.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that like the scenes you see him in with the flashbacks and Rocket's friends are immediately, you feel a connection to them because they're the epitome of innocence, right?
Right.
Baby Rocket, Lila, Teefs, and Floor, and you instantly feel bad for them because you're like we haven't seen them, so I can only imagine,
Yeah,
right?
you're waiting for the definite, inevitability.
Yeah, and so immediately, the flashbacks do a great job of pulling you in, pulling on your heartstrings, and making you feel for these characters. And that's only accentuated when the High Evolutionary comes in because you're like, well, like I know he's the bad guy, but he's being sort of nice right now. Like, what's his play? What's his game? When is this going to turn? When is this going to go wrong? Um, and when they pull the mask off of him at the end, that is just like that is such a gnarly character design of like the ripped up muscular face. And I mean, you can probably figure the horror freak in me was jumping with joy.
Well, add to I thought it was funny that like throughout the movie tracks, and I think Quill made, but a couple of them kept referencing Face Off, like it's a face off, and like
Oh
that was
yeah, and
like
they
the
pull his
payoff.
face off. Yeah. Yeah, it's not a trap, it's a
That
face off.
yeah,
That was
that
good.
made so that made me laugh.
Yeah, the High Evolutionary was just so good. And this is the problem with Marvel villains, I think. As a whole, as a franchise whole, Marvel villains, let's say 75% of the time as a rough number, are outstanding. They're so good and you want to see more of them. But the problem is that you really can't have them more than once
Right,
because they have to be defeated at the end of the movie. Whether you
right.
follow the superhero formula or not, like the villains get defeated. So as much as everyone loves, say, Killmonger and Black Panther, that's it. It's one movie. He died. Like you can't bring him back in any way that doesn't undermine his story in Black Panther. It's the same thing with
Right,
the
and
High Evolutionary.
they can't all be Thanos,
Yeah,
for many reasons, but
yeah.
like you can't do that either.
But as much as I would love to see the High Evolutionary, come back in another movie, just so you can see him again, just so you can experience that again. It
Right,
if he does come back, it would undermine almost the entirety of
exactly.
Guardians 3.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a in that sense, it would be interesting if it was like if he was introduced earlier on in the franchise and had a longer shelf life then, but, like, basically knowing again, we've already been introduced to the multiverse, so anything's on the table
That's
really
true.
now that you think of it. But, again, like you said, I think as true as that is being the multiverse and, like, anyone is able to come back and all that bullshit, I think Marvel, at least to their credit, like, knows the absolute backlash they'd receive if they just start bringing back, like, all these killed off villains or,
Oh yeah, they're smart about
killed
it.
off superheroes. Like, I think they know to walk that fine line as well, with that. Like I said, I totally love the whole just the high evolutionary just presence around the whole, plot of the movie and just his connection and background to Rocket. And I think what was just kind of brilliant too was like how unexpected, like, and this is just a basic interpretation, but like he just thought it was just some other like raccoon or animal he was experimenting on, but like little did he know like how brilliant he was. And like I said, just kind of the what he was trying to create kind of literally like bit him in the face eventually,
Yeah,
so just
yeah,
something like he just definitely didn't see coming. And it just I think their connection and stuff and then the payoff at the end was just really well done
yeah.
throughout, the entire film.
I mean,
And
it boils down to overwhelming narcissism, you know?
right,
And he
right,
mentions it at some point, and I'll paraphrase, he says to Rocket, like, "I created you. How are you smarter than me?"
exactly. Yep,
And the whole movie, like, yeah, he wants to capture Rocket again so that he can, so he can use Rocket's brain to fix the new civilizations. But at the same time, the subtext is that he wants to capture Rocket so that he can prove to himself that he's better than this raccoon when he
right,
knows deep inside that he's not.
exactly.
Um,
Yep,
and that's why I think he's such a convincing villain because he has so many layers to him. I also think on a much more surface level, his costume was fantastic.
mhm,
It was so simple but so good. The Guardians costumes I thought were okay, but they looked really stiff to me, especially on Drax, who's a character we're used to seeing with no shirt on. It just looked like, he's I don't know. It's like such a nitpicky thing. It really doesn't matter in the long run of the movie because visually the suits looked fine. I was a little miffed that Star-Lord didn't get to use his mask like when he was floating out in space.
true.
I'm like, dude, just
Yes.
but I don't know. James Gunn got
I
out
don't
of
think we I don't
reasoning.
that's true. I didn't even realize that. I don't think we saw him in his mask at all throughout the
No,
whole
we didn't.
thing.
And I'm like, why not just put him in the mask when he's wearing the new suit? I figured that was a given for at some point in the
Oh
movie,
my
but
god, yeah.
I don't know. The mask is such an iconic thing. It
Another
just felt
another
weird.
minor again, nitpicking sort of, but not really. Another minor thing to put in the negative column here.
Yeah, like a little asterisk down on the bottom. But I guess the last major thing is something that I think you wanted to talk about was their use of Star-Lord and Gamora, but not Gamora, and
Right.
how their relationship evolved. So what do you spearhead that conversation? Go for it.
So, I'll try to be brief and quick here. But to be honest, I didn't love like Gamora in this movie.
Angry Gamora?
Um, yeah, like I think what made the original Gamora so great was her own character development. Like she comes in Guardians like guns a blazing, like a badass, basically almost like huntress, hunter type
Yeah.
figure, but still like has hatred and despises like Thanos, but still has some loyalty and some loving connection to him.
Yep.
But she's still kind of like alone, like not a loner, but she's does everything for herself. And it's like only throughout the whole, movie of the original Guardians, they kind of pull her in and be like, you don't have to be by yourself. You don't have to do everything by yourself. Like we're all misfits like you. Like, and they kind of see that connection in each other. And it's like
Mhm.
they're both not anticipating like, falling for each other, but it just sort of occurs and happens naturally. And now flip it over to like angry Gamora. It's like I think she's just like such like so set in her ways and just so stagnant. Like they tried to have like a little wiggle room and a little like character development with her in this movie, but like it really just didn't pay off. It didn't work. And I feel like maybe I was like naive, but I thought she'd already have some slight character development given the fact that she was in Endgame and like so she's been there since then and you know is still there now and has some connection with the Guardians, even though she wasn't part of the Guardians. Like she knew about them and knew the old Gamora's backstory and knew, you know, Nebula's like connection to her and Nebula kind of caring about her now, and Nebula sort of becoming the new Gamora in the sense of like she's kind of had a complete
Yeah, she's
180.
she's filling that character role for
Um,
sure.
but almost like I left the theater kind of thinking like if like they never brought that Gamora back, like it wouldn't take much away from the movie. Like and that's terrible to say because she's like an original Guardian.
Yeah, no, but you're
But
right. You're right.
I don't like I just thought she'd have like a bigger role and still be that like standoffish kind of like independent figure she was at the beginning of Guardians 1, but like slowly kind of transitioning back into what, the original Gamora became and kind of seeing like coming full circle sort of or just kind of starting that transition down that line of like these are like good loving caring people that like are can relate to me and my situation more or less, you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
especially Nebula obviously, but she's just kind of like no, I don't want anything to do with the Guardians. I'll join another team, the Ravager. Like it didn't like sit well with me, and maybe it's like me being overly bitter, but I just kind of was like, if she wasn't in the movie, like it didn't really take much away from the Guardians. And again, that's kind of bad to say because again, she's an original Guardian. She was a great character,
Put that in
but
the middle.
yeah, like you said, like I just think Nebula like really perfectly kind of filled that void here. She was really good in this movie. So I not much would have been missed if she hadn't been in this movie at all, is kind of my point.
I see what you're saying. To the credit of Gamora, though, I think she did start to come around just at the very, very end of the movie
That's
when she was
a little
when
bit.
she was talking to Groot. I think she
Yep.
started to get it. But at
Slowly.
that
Yeah.
point, at that point, she was already committed to going back to the Ravagers, and I mean the Guardians were basically splitting up anyway,
Right.
so there would be no sense to have her back. But I mean, when you do think about it, there were a couple of key points that she played a role in this film, but at the same time, let's say like Zoe Saldana didn't want to come back as Gamora, they could have they could have written around it with I think somewhat minimal problem, and that's not a knock on Gamora at all. Don't get me wrong. I did actually enjoy seeing this like really spiteful, angry side of Gamora, especially when you counter that with Star Lord, like in the when the God, this sounds awful. When they were in the orifice and Star Lord is like, I'm so sorry. Like we don't do this. I swear. She's like, I'm gonna blow somebody's head off. It was a good counteracting of characters, I think.
Oh no, that scene was great. Like I didn't like hate her or didn't think she did a good job in her given role in this movie. My larger point is just like I was just kind of disappointed in the sense of, you know, she should have had some like already predetermined, pre-developed like character development and sort of coming back again, not full circle and taking over. The second Gamora died, like she's back and she loves Star Lord. That's not what I'm saying, but just back in the squad, back in the gang, and like again, kind of still like independent off to the side, but still a team player type of thing. And I feel like she kind of really wasn't.
Yeah. I know this might be sort of a hot take because long superhero movies don't tend to do well critically. Just look at Batman vs Superman. But anyway, this movie is already 2.5 hours. I feel like another 15 minutes might have done some good for specific things like Gamora joining the Ravagers. You kind
How
of,
long was the runtime?
I think it was 2.5 hours. more or
Yeah,
less right on.
it didn't feel like that at all.
No, totally no, because the pacing was so good.
Yeah,
But imagine there was a scene, like a really short scene of like Gamora joining the Ravagers post Endgame and sort of like bridging that gap of what's been going on since
right.
Endgame. Because like
Yep,
you said earlier, the real world stuff with James Gunn and all that gets in the way so that there's a lot of disconnect between Guardians 2, Guardians 3, or even Endgame and Guardians 3. And then
right.
maybe there's like one other scene of the High Evolutionary forcing Adam Warlock out of his cocoon rather than some gold skinned blonde haired dude flying through space to open the movie.
Exactly.
I mean, like you and I who know who Adam Warlock is, we're like, yeah, okay, that's fine. I get it.
Right.
But to somebody else who doesn't immediately make the connection between the cocoon and Adam Warlock,
Exactly.
it can feel a bit jarring.
Right.
But
No,
otherwise,
they definitely could have, um, I guess, had some, I don't know. I'm trying to look for the word, not like an origin story, but just more background on the creation of this Adam Warlock and Gamora's kind of transition from loner, kind of not knowing what the hell she's doing here, transitioning, being with the Ravagers, and that type of thing. So you kind of, again, the general basic fan kind of has some understanding of like where they're coming from and like
yeah.
where they came from.
Yeah, I also think it would do wonders um for just the characters, especially in the long run for Adam Warlock moving forward.
Yep.
I think that it would just would have been better for them. Um would have been better for them anyway.
No, totally. And like I said, not to keep getting repetitive as we tend to do here, like you said earlier, sounding like broken records, but I just feel like with the Adam Warlock thing, it was just kind of a little bit too little, too late at this point. And so I think
Yeah.
that's kind of a good, concluding point is like
Yeah.
I think the similarity between Adam Warlock and Gamora here is like if both of those characters like weren't in the film and they like again, this goes as into saying like with the understanding that they weren't in the film, so it's like they're written around and there's just
Yeah.
different scenes that they were in, whatnot. Just bear with me. But if neither character was in the movie, like in my personal opinion, my takeaway from the film, it wouldn't change at all, really. It just
Yeah.
wouldn't.
I can totally see that.
Maybe it's some fool's hope, um, false hope here. And again, as I say, the MCU rose colored glasses I'm wearing, but it was a good kind of refresher knowing that they can still pump out, quality movies that definitely definitely make you want to go back and watch it once it's available.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll definitely be giving it a second watch in the next few months or so. Just some couple of like final thoughts that don't really have any place except here. Linda Cardellini becoming a second character in the MCU in Lila, that was super cool. Maria Bakalova as Cosmo was fantastic. She was
Yep.
Borat's daughter in Borat 2. She was also in Bodies, 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 which is a good movie. If you haven't seen it, check that out.
Wait, who was the first one? Who is her first character?
Linda Cardellini was Hawkeye's wife in Age of Ultron,
Oh shit.
and
Okay.
she voiced Lila the Otter.
Wait. So was she Hawkeye's wife in all the films?
Yeah, I guess by proxy, yeah. Endgame, Infinity War, all them.
Interesting.
Kraglin was a blast to see, always, Sean Gunn. And I internally was screaming like a little girl out of joy when I saw Michael Rooker as Yondu one more time
Oh yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
I love him. The new spaceship being called the Bowie was very nice. Very nice touch. It's Peter Quill's
Oh my
1980.
god, how do we forgot to talk about this. This is crazy, but
What did we
the
forget?
soundtrack.
Oh, yeah, it was good.
I mean, like that's
I
kind of
feel
the
like that's just
whole,
a given at this point.
of course, like that's what, but with all the Guardians movies, it's like the music is kind of just as important as the script and the narrative.
Yeah, I thought the ending of the movie was that an end credits with Rocket and the New Guardians.
I think
They're
it
on
was
like
a mid credit.
yeah
Yeah.
mid credits when he's like, "Well, I got a special feeling about this one," and then he plays "Come and Get Your Love."
Yeah,
That was it.
that was
I
funny.
thought that
Pretty
was like
cool touch.
the perfect way to end the movie, to
Right.
end the trilogy, to send everybody off. I like that Groot is getting closer and closer to the first appearance of Groot design, where he's just like this big hulking tree monster. Like in that mid-credit scene, he's massive. He's huge. That's really really cool. That's probably one of my favorite Groot designs behind obviously the original. I didn't really like his design in this one, but again, that's like a personal thing. It just looked clunky.
What'd you think of the part when he was like, you understood him say like, "I love you
Oh,
guys."
that yeah. So I saw that James Gunn tweeted something the other day that was it's not actually Groot saying "I love you guys,"
Right, it's them understanding him saying it.
but it's also the audience understanding him saying that,
Right.
which is like we've been
That's
on
why.
this journey with Groot for
Right.
this long, and we finally understand him say one thing, which is like that. It's just, dude, if you take one thing away from this episode, James Gunn knows how to write a friggin' movie script. That's it.
Yes, sir.
That's it.
It definitely does. No
Yeah.
question about that.
So I guess if I had to wrap up this whole thing in one final thought, I'd say the Guardians of the Galaxy have been perfectly realized in this trilogy, and they have solidified themselves as A-list Marvel Comics characters.
They're in the Marvel Hall of Fame.
At this point, yeah. If you asked me in 2012, I'd say no way.
Right. I agree with that. I'd second that.
Out of 5, what do you think you'd throw at this movie?
Out of 5.
Yeah.
I usually that's not my rating scale usually, but I'll play along. Um, I would say like a solid. I'm gonna be like really specific here. I'd say like a solid like 4.3.
I was gonna go with 4, so we're pretty close.
Yeah,
Pretty
like it
close.
was. I think it was. If this is the end of the original Guardians, like it was a perfect way to wrap up.
Yeah.
It's been a really good, con- for the most part, congruent, solidified trilogy.
Yeah.
That
No complaints.
when you think of it is rare this day and age in the current face of the MCU.
You got any other closing thoughts besides the last hour or so that we've been spewing about this movie?
No, like I said, it was a good refresher in the current state of Marvel. I know I liked Ant Man Quantumania a bit more than you.
Yes.
Neither of us thought it was great, but
Yes.
two decent, two pretty solid films. This definitely being a lot better and a lot more stable, and a lot more memorable than Ant Man Quantumania. But
Yep.
again, I think it's just my Marvel rose colored glasses. But hopefully they can kind of build towards something legit. And what they've done so far with the shows and the other movies that have come out before, the hope is that they're building to something pretty significant. That's what that's what you got to hope for at this point, and just pray that it pays off and they do it right. So that's kind of where I stand with my current fandom in the whole grand scheme of the MCU. But purely speaking, just Guardians, Guardians trilogy, absolutely loved them, loved all three movies, and thought this was a perfect way to wrap it up. And when you think of it in the short term, yeah, not really, but definitely kind of a long time coming.
If all went according to plan, we would have had this movie a couple of years ago. But if waiting all that time was the price we had to pay to get a movie this good, then I mean, I think that was totally worth it.
Totally.
Like, I mean, I think that about covers Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 for now, at least.
Do we have any Andrew solo projects as I have that you can plug right here?
Yeah, so I got a few planned up. Kyle and I are going to be filming a new movie this weekend.
Ooh,
So keep an eye out for that in the
forward to
coming
seeing
weeks.
that.
I have an idea to redo the Evil Dead 2 video essay,
Okay, that'd be
mostly
fun. That might be like the origin of this channel. Like your
not
first,
quite, but really close. and obviously I'm always garnering new clips for my Dead by Daylight compilations, but my PlayStation's been on the fritz the last couple of days, so I haven't been able to play as much.
I can't promise anything, but I've told Andrew behind the scenes I'd like to try to start contributing something, maybe not as grandiose as Andrew's solo videos,
Good
but
word. Good word.
thank you.
Grandiose. Ooh.
Something, I don't know, something kinda simple and fun and short that I could handle to just, add as much content as possible, but
Yeah, man.
something in the pipeline to look forward to.
We're always
Don't
looking
really
to
have a
expand Cellar Dwellers Productions.
yeah, solid episode here. I really like talking about this, so as always, keep an eye on Cellar Dwellers Productions. Andrew
Stay in the basement.
pumps out a lot of good content. Sorry that that joke just threw me off.
What?
Um, stay in the basement.
Stay in the basement. Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure to tell your intergalactic space police team.
The intergalactic UPS mail people,
Yep, them too.
tell all different multiverse versions of Aiden as well. Um,
Don't forget about Aiden and your grandma, your space dogs, and your uh sisters with antenna. All of them. Tell them.
yeah.
And with that, thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next Cellar Dwellers podcast video, what have you. See ya.